The year is 1547. The King of England, Henry VIII, sits on the throne. Having recently executed 2 of his wives, you have just stepped out of a time portal and materialized in the middle of 16th century London. Now you need to navigate a completely foreign world where nothing is as it seems. If you can't survive, you would be only the second person to do so after John Henry, who made the return trip in 1899. Will you be able to survive 24 hours in Tudor England? Let's find out. The first thing you would notice about Tudor England is the smell. A powerful stench of unwashed bodies, human and animal waste, and rotting food that would assault your senses. Here are some facts that will keep you from being overwhelmed. There was no modern sanitation. The streets of London were open sewers, and fresh water was a luxury. Most water sources were contaminated with human and animal waste and carried disease. Water was often collected from rivers or open wells, which were also used for washing and disposing of waste. A single glass of water from a public well could be a death sentence. It was a breeding ground for typhoid and dysentery. Germs were unknown. People believed illnesses were caused by imbalances in the 4 humors or by supernatural causes. Diseases spread rapidly through the population since people didn't understand how to prevent their spread. If you were unlucky enough to fall sick, you would die. If you don't know this already, the food in Tudor times was terrible. A visitor to England in 1573 described it as the most vile and detestable that ever he did both see and smell. You would eat a simple, bland, and monotonous diet consisting of bread, pottage, a thick stew, and ale. Hunting, farming, or foraging was forbidden for commoners unless they were paid to do so. So you would starve without these skills. Your modern immune system would be ill-equipped to handle the diseases that ravaged Tudor England. Measles, influenza, and smallpox were common and deadly. A single case of these diseases could shut down the entire town. You would also be vulnerable to the ever-present plague. A single case could cause a lockdown, and a flea bite could mean a quick and agonizing death. There was no modern medicine. Illness was believed to be caused by a spiritual or humoral imbalance. Cures were often more dangerous than the disease itself. Bloodletting, a practice of withdrawing blood, was popular but could lead to weakness and even death. Treatments were often applied externally, such as placing toads or other animals on the affected area, which may sound disgusting to us now, but they believed it could draw out the disease. In this time period, if you accidentally cut yourself, you could die from it. There were no antibiotics and little understanding of hygiene. Cuts or scrapes could lead to fatal infections. Minor injuries left untreated could become life-threatening. Imagine getting a small cut while working and then dying from a simple scratch. The justice system was brutal and swift. You could be hanged for petty theft, and a minor argument could lead to a duel to the death. Weapons were commonly used, and the courts took a hands-off approach to disputes. You would be expected to defend yourself and settle arguments with violence. Treason was the most terrifying danger in Tudor England. A simple comment or a misplaced word could land you on a scaffold. The king's paranoia and desire for absolute power meant that anyone could be accused of disloyalty. The punishment for treason was severe, often involving torture and execution. You would be a stranger in a world without common courtesy or politeness. Public brawls were common, and your modern sensibilities would make you an easy target. People were generally rude and inconsiderate towards each other. Personal space was non-existent, and strangers were often viewed with suspicion. The entire social structure was based on a rigid hierarchy. A peasant could not pretend to be a nobleman. A person's life was dictated by their birth. Social mobility was almost impossible. You would be expected to live and die within your social class. If you are a woman, your life would be even more difficult. You had no legal rights and were considered the property of your father or husband. You could be forced into marriage, and your life expectancy was lower than men. You would be unable to function after sunset. There was no artificial light. Life was ruled by the sun. After sunset, the streets were dark, dangerous, and filled with thieves and criminals. Working or traveling at night was almost impossible, and you would have to stay indoors. Henry VIII, the King of England, would be a walking source of terror. He was known for his tyrannical behavior, and the king's paranoia could lead to his subjects being accused of treason. His wrath was feared throughout the kingdom. As a modern man, you would be physically unable to survive in Tudor England. The backbreaking labor that was the norm would require incredible strength and stamina. Without the ability to work, you would starve. The workdays were long and hard, and the tasks were demanding. You would need to be physically fit to survive. You wouldn't know how to speak the language. The English of the Tudor period was so different from modern English that you would be a social outcast and a suspect. Language barrier would make it difficult to communicate and could lead to misunderstandings that might get you into trouble. Punishments for crime were horrifying. A person could be boiled alive, hanged, drawn and quartered for treason. The justice system was harsh, and punishments were designed to be brutal and serve as an example to others. This means that even for a small crime, you could be severely punished. Without knowing any of this, you would enter this world without a legal identity. You would also have no money or a place to belong. This would make it difficult to find work or shelter, and could lead to destitution and starvation. And here's the final blow. In the end, your lack of knowledge, skills, and immunity would mean that you would not survive a single day in Tudor England. You would be overwhelmed by the sights, sounds, and smells of a foreign world. You would struggle to find food and shelter, and would be vulnerable to the many diseases that ravaged the time period. With no way to defend yourself against the dangers that lurked around every corner, you would be a sitting duck. And if that wasn't bad enough, you wouldn't even be able to communicate with the people around you. You would be utterly helpless and at the mercy of the unforgiving world of Tudor England. Would you be able to survive 24 hours in Tudor England? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and share this video for more historical tales. Thank you for watching.